Hello, our viewers. I'm Mr. Kalyango Frank, a lecturer with Victoria University and equally a clinician. I head the Public Health Department, and today we're going to have a session about something very important in life, that is pregnancy. But about pregnancy, we're going to look at the danger signs in pregnancy and the early signs of labor. We are keen to have this session with you. I'm going to be with my colleague. She's Susan Asimwe. She's a midwife and a specialist in women health. Okay, so pregnancy is one of the best moments almost every woman would wish to have in a lifetime. But it's faced with a lot of anxiety. You don't know what kind of outcome you'll get. So in this session, we're going to take you through perspectives on matters to do with knowing what is normal in pregnancy. Because many women will have things that are normal, but they are anxious because they have never had the experience. You will also have to know about what is dangerous in pregnancy, the danger signs in what? In pregnancy, so that if you experience it, you immediately call your midwife or doctor. Actually, I will encourage that you should have the numbers, phone numbers of your gynecologist, your doctor or midwife, such that you're always in touch. So we shall ensure that you get to know the early signs of labor, so that you don't delay at home, because most of the deaths we get, maternal deaths, are related to delays, either in seeking care or delay in attention. But you shouldn't delay at home. Then we shall end up looking at the experiences, okay, to know what to do in case you have all this, because it's all aimed at getting you to take action, and that's what public health is about. So whenever we talk of pregnancy, we are talking of a situation that involves a lot. So pregnancy is the time during which one or more offsprings grows or develops inside the womb of a woman. And when I talk of the womb, I'm talking of the uterus. In picture here is a uterus. And I will tell you more about the normal physiology around what? Around this, such that you know what is normal with regard to what we're going to do. I'm still going to give you some little hint. From here, you find that when it comes to the aspects of conception, okay, what happens even before conception? A woman usually gets menstrual periods. Menstrual periods are got on a monthly basis once you've reached the teenagers, okay? And you start what? Getting menstrual periods. But these periods are cycles in the body that will help release an egg, okay? And this process is done from something we call the follicle, okay? The follicle grows and it releases the egg. This egg moves from here up to the uterus, and around this spot, if there was coitus is sex, and sperms moved from here, they would meet around what? Here, and fertilization takes place in the tubes. This area is what we call the fallopian what? Tubes. Once that occurs, they combine and they roll down for implantation. And we are going to see that almost all the other signs and symptoms will be related to the hormones that change when we are pregnant. I'll give you an example. One of the things that is commonly done is we do a test called the HCG. HCG is a scientific word for human chorion gonadotrophic what? Hormone. But I will not go deep into that. Let's just look at HCG test to test for pregnancy. When can it be positive? It will be positive at least after 9 what? Days, because it is produced from the baby. But the hormones that are going to change, there will be an increase in progesterone and there will be an increase in estrogen. But the variation of fluctuations within those hormones will influence the kind of signs you will what? You will see. So normally this keeps happening in pregnancy. The blood volume increases. Usually on average a normal person has 5 what? Liters. But they tend to increase in what? In pregnancy. The red blood cells increase, the plasma or the fluid in the blood also what? Increases, and at the end of pregnancy you may end up having something like what? 7.5 what? Liters. But there is some sense of the blood is a bit dilute. Actually for us we end up calling that what? Hemodilution. And that is related to what? It's a form of physiological what? Anemia. So it's normal, but in what? In pregnancy. Then as the pregnancy grows and it is towards the what? The brim. This is the diaphragm, I can say, okay? You will end up experiencing a situation where it sort of presses on the diaphragm, and this causes some sort of shallow breathing. But the body is aware that the baby will be pressing on the diaphragm, so it will use the hormone progesterone to help relax the rib cage, such that someone is able to have shallow what? Breathing, and this allows for oxygen to enter. And when it has more oxygen, there will be less what? Carbon dioxide. That is what we call alkalosis. And that alkalosis is important because it is what allows the baby to keep taking in more what? Oxygen. So the body is always what? Ready for pregnancy. Then we shall see an increase in what? Urinary output. Pregnant women always tell you that I feel like going to urinate. They have just come back within an interval, they still want to what? To go back, because the baby is pressing on the bladder, so the bladder cannot expand upwards, so it keeps trying to what? To ease. And there is also a physiological bit to it because of the increased blood saturation movement, okay? There is increased glomerular what? Filtration. There is the movement of water, okay, is faster. So what happens is that all the ureters will be almost what? Full. And this makes ladies get predisposed to something called urinary tract infection. It's much more common in pregnancy. And later you shall see it amongst the danger what? Features. So with the hormonal changes, a pregnancy woman will end up getting mood swings. The mood, okay, you see, like someone may be during normal times they are very friendly, but during pregnancy someone adopts a behavior you wouldn't even what? Believe. They are selective. There are some people they like and there are some they don't what? Like. And we're going to see the same thing appearing to the digestive system, where someone at times may feel nauseated, and in other cases there are aspects like they are picky in what they want to eat, okay? They choose what to take and what not to what to take. So all those things are normal expectations in what? In pregnancy. Constipation is a common occurrence, but usually when you get any feature you don't know about, inform your what? Your physician, such that they can guide you. What is normal will be what? There. And in most cases, because of the slowed digestion, you may also get some kind of reflux or esophagitis. So contents of the stomach may come back through the upper sphincter, and you feel some kind of irritation around the what? The chest. And if that happens, your doctor will be there and they will give you something like omeprazole. But I wouldn't want you to give yourself before the doctor what? Is informed. So there are aspects. The breasts. One of the signs of pregnancy, the breasts. They tend to engorge, but at the same time, the nipples tend to become more black because there is a hormone that is important in increasing production of melanocytes that is produced in pregnancy. So that is normal. And it is also responsible for the browning or darkening of the linea alba. Thank you. So from our assessment, you can see that what is normal is always there. So we shall know that there is a problem when you begin to see these things, because for them, they are the things that tell us that there is a danger. One, an ectopic pregnancy. Ectopic means something going outside where it's expected. So an ectopic pregnancy is a pregnancy that decides to grow from where it's not meant to what? To be. Then we look at an abortion. An abortion is when someone experiences loss of their gestation. The abortions are many. Some may be complete, incomplete. Some may even be just threatened. All those. But what is important is that there was a pregnancy and there is an attempt to get it what? Lost. Hyperemesis gravidarum is usually one of the things common in twin pregnancies. Someone gets to vomit quite what? Frequently. And I know my colleague will expound on that, but there is that thing, hypertension in pregnancy. When you are already hypertensive or having high blood pressure and you get pregnant. But there is when high blood pressure develops when you are pregnant. That is preeclampsia. My colleague will expand on the specific what? Times. Then there is a time also where you end up getting complications, like someone goes into convulsions. Convulsions is like shaking movements of the what? The body. So that is full eclampsia. Then we have pulmonary embolism. This is embolic phenomena tends to happen because of the reduced flow back. Okay? And so clotting is easy. It can easily happen in what? In pregnancy. And once a clot gets into the lungs, that's when we say we are having pulmonary embolism. Someone will have difficulty in what? In breathing. Then it can be also attributed to amniotic what? Fluids. And we may also have infections. So any temperature that is above 38.1 degrees, just know that this fever may be infection related. This time I will not quote which specific what? Infection. Yes. But usually what we do, we tend to do culture and sensitivity to know which drug to use. And at times with your history, you will be able to tell us and we know which what? Infection. So, placenta problems. The placenta may be embedded in a way that increases your what? Your risk for problems. So if it is a low-lying placenta, or if it crosses the cervical os, you will end up with bleeding, and that is placenta what? Previa. But the placenta may also decide to separate before its right what? Time, and from the uterus, and that causes problems, and that is what we call abruptio placentae. Then, so all those will be related with some form of what? Bleeding or disturbance to the fetus. So the fetus is shown to be disturbed if you see a decrease in its movements. So if your baby, you were feeling the kicks and now you don't feel any kicks, just get to know that there is a problem So, in summary, there are things that are normal to have in pregnancy, like the continuous expansion of the what? The abdomen as the baby what? Grows, the darkening of the, those are normal expectations. But once you see these things like the signs that my sister will talk about, the headaches, the whatever, you will know that something is not normal. So the best thing to do is always stay in touch with your physician or your doctor, and always keep a contact of your nearest what? Midwife. Keep those numbers and they will always assist you. Medics are usually very free at sharing information. Thank you very much. And as I'm going to give you a break, but in the next session, my colleague Susan will be here to give you the details around all these I've explained. They will give you some signs and symptoms. They are things that you will feel, which are symptoms, and what the doctor will see or the midwife will see, which are signs. So be ready for that.
Hello viewers, welcome back from the break. My name is Susan Asimwe, a midwife and a women's health specialist. So in the previous session, we looked at the normal physiology of pregnancy. We saw what is normal, though we may not have exhausted everything that is normal. And we looked at some of the dangers that can happen in pregnancy. So at this time, we are going to look at exactly the danger and look at what is that sign or symptom that might tell you that you have this problem. And like we have said, whenever you see this sign or symptom that we are about to talk about, kindly call your midwife or your gynecologist or the person who's taking care of you, who is a medical practitioner. So I'm going to start with the danger of ectopic pregnancy and some of the signs that you might realize while you're home, especially in these days. You might experience some pain. This pain might appear as pressure in the low abdominal pain, and this usually happens in the first 3 months. This happens exactly when the pregnancy is in a wrong place, and usually in the fallopian tube. So here the pregnancy cannot grow there because it is really tiny. It is very small. So as the pregnancy grows, it can bring that pain, or it can be worse, that the fallopian tube can even rupture. So when it ruptures, you might experience other signs like dizziness. You might get bleeding, which it might come out, or it may be kind of concealed depending on the situation at that time. So this pain still may be on either side of the abdomen, either left or right. So as long as you experience such kind of pain, only what you have to do is to call your healthcare practitioner or your midwife, and you make sure that you go to the hospital. Do not ignore any kind of pain that you feel, especially the pain on the one side, or any kind of pain that might happen in your abdomen when you're below 3 months or around 3 months and you stay home. Then the next danger is abortion. So at this time, still when you're still in your first trimester, the first 3 months, you might experience some severe cramping. This cramping might be associated with bleeding. But if all this happens, it might be a sign that I am losing my pregnancy, and it can be helped. If you call your midwife or your gynecologist early and you run to the nearest health facility, this can be helped. It can be, yes, inevitable that it will get out and then they will manage the complications, but it also might be an opportunity for you to save your pregnancy. Then still in the first months of your pregnancy, the first trimester, you must experience what we call extremely nausea and vomiting. Nausea and vomiting, we looked at it already, and we said it might be a normal physiology because of the hormone HCG that we talked about. But in some circumstances, nausea and vomiting might be too much that you lose your weight, you fail to eat anything, and it can cause dehydration. And once you get dehydrated, it is not good for your baby. you're losing electrolytes. So it will really impair with the distribution of nutrients to your child. So it's important that once you feel that this nausea and vomiting has gone too far, kindly go to the nearest healthcare provider or call your midwife, and you seek help, and we see how you can be helped. Then another problem, this can happen, this usually happens after, in Uganda here we consider an abortion to be below 28 weeks. However, in the developed countries where they have advanced technologies, they can even help babies who are 20 weeks. So you will find that we say if you are between 20 and 37 weeks and you experience some of these signs that I'm going to talk about, you might tend to go into preterm labor, which is a problem. So some signs of the preterm labor are contractions. When I talk about a contraction, it could be a strong cramp that is maybe more than a period. This cramp can happen like frequently, like every after 15 minutes, you're getting a bad cramp. Every after 15 minutes, you're getting a bad cramp. This is a sign that you might be in preterm labor, and you might have a baby who is below term, who is below your 9 months, what we call 40 weeks. So it is important that you call or you run to the nearest health facility where they can help you. Still, when you are experiencing this kind of contraction, you might feel some kind of pressure within the pelvis, the down part of the abdomen. It might be pain that is going to radiate from your back and coming to the lower abdomen. So in case you experience this, please run to your healthcare provider. And also in case you see change in your vaginal discharge, this can be really increased and might be maybe mucoid, and it might also look like it contains some kind of blood. As long as you're between 20 and 37 weeks, it might mean that you're entering into preterm labor. So kindly, in case you see any of these things, you are likely to be in preterm labor, and it's important that you get to talk to your doctor and run to the nearest health facility where they can help you. There are people who are at risk for preterm labor. If you know that you have multiple pregnancy, you have more than one baby in your womb, you are at a risk of getting a preterm labor. And also other people without any other risk factor can get the preterm labor. So in case you see any of these signs, kindly run to your healthcare provider. Then, like we have seen during pregnancy, usually women get kind of infections. Some is due to their physiological make, but other infections can come in there. So if you experience any fever, this fever can be 38.1 and above, or it has stayed for over days. So this is a sign that actually you have an infection, and it's important that you get to your healthcare provider. Another sign that can tell you that you have an infection is a discharge. Your vaginal discharge, which has changed color. It might be green, it might be yellow, it might be brownish. This is another sign that you have an infection. So it is important that you talk to your healthcare provider or run to the nearest place where you can be helped. These infections are usually the leading causes of actually preterm labor. So for you to avoid the preterm labor or losing your child or anything, because this infection can also cross the placenta and disturb your baby. So this is a very bad sign, and it's important that you run to your midwife or your healthcare provider, and it can be really well managed. Then another problem is we call it fetal distress. It means that your baby can get tired while he's still in the womb. So one of the major signs that you have to note is, how is your baby moving? Is your baby turning? If your baby is turning, how many times did your baby turn in a day? So usually we advise you, mothers, to count your baby kicks or movements. This can be as long as you're towards term, above 20 weeks and above. So it's important you count. If you count 10 times, your baby has moved 10 times in a day, that's good enough. You stop there, start counting. It has moved once, twice, thrice, up to 10 times, the 10th time. If your baby has moved 10 times, stop counting and start counting the next day. So what we want is that your baby moves at least 10 times in a day. If your baby moves less than that or much more less, kindly talk to your gynecologist, run to the nearest health facility where they can easily assess the viability of your baby. Then another problem that is actually common these days is hypertension in pregnancy. So here we already looked at hypertension, where a woman, yes, you've been having your blood pressure high and you're pregnant, but we also have the women who get their high blood pressures high after 20 weeks of pregnancy, and we call that preeclampsia. And once a woman starts convulsing, we call that eclampsia. So these women will present with these signs. You might not be able to know that your blood pressure is high at home, but there are some things that will require you to go and check for your blood pressure. One of them is if your vision has been fine, you've been seeing very well, but abruptly you feel it's kind of blurring. So it's important that you go and check your blood pressure. If you've not been having headaches, sometimes which are among the normal physiology, it's true that some pregnant women can develop some headaches, but this can be a headache which is really persistent. So it's important that you call your healthcare provider and you assess exactly the cause of the headache. If you have gained weight, like excessively, in a day you woke up and your weight is too much, like your feet are all swollen, your face is swollen, your hands are swollen, so it is important that you actually seek for help from your healthcare providers. So other people can go on to have an epigastric pain, a very severe epigastric pain, but this is when it has actually gone into its extremes. And other women can actually convulse at home. A convulsion is like you see an epileptic person fall down and the body gets some kind of jerking movement or shakes so vigorously. So that is also another danger sign. So we have already talked about some problems to do with the placenta, and usually they present like this. If you get kind of heavy, bright red, painless bleeding. So if it is heavy, bright red, but you don't have any pain, but you are bleeding, this can happen, yes, during pregnancy, and it means that actually your placenta might be low-lying. Like we have this diagram here, it might not be so clear, but it shows us the levels of the low-lying placentas. Like the first one shows us, yes, the placenta is a little bit, it's low-lying, but it's away from the cervix. The cervix, that's the mouth, the entry of the what? Of the uterus. Then the second one shows you that the placenta is a little bit on the margin, like near the what? The cervix. That's around here. And then the last one shows that it has completely covered the cervix. So that's what we mean when they say you have placenta previa or your placenta is low-lying. So once you get that kind of bleeding and you don't have any pain, it might indicate to this. The other one could be that your placenta has separated before time. But if you have that kind of problem, it means that you will get, yes, vaginal bleeding, but at this time you will be having some kind of pain within your abdomen. Other signs that you might get is in case you see any gush of water come from your vagina. Like some words are quite hard, I know, for you viewers, but you'll forgive me. So you will see like a gush of blood come from down. I mean a gush of water. It can be even over 500 mils of water, or much more, or less than that. But as long as you see water that has increased, just know your membranes or liquor, the water that the baby is in, could be leaking, or it could be that it has burst and the baby cannot be there without that water. So it is important that you run to the facility. Do not delay for any of these signs. Other feelings that you might ignore are feeling like you want to faint, dizziness, you get a severe heart palpitation, and this, or difficulty in breathing. This can mean that you have maybe anemia. So this kind of anemia is common in pregnant women because you have demands for the baby and demands for your own body. So this is why sometimes we give you those red tablets. We call them iron with folic acid. So it's important that you take those medicines, and if you feel any of these symptoms or signs, kindly run to your healthcare provider. So at this time, I'm going for a break, and when I come back, I'll be taking you through early signs of labor And thank you for your time. Welcome back, viewers, from the break. And previously, before we went to the break, we talked about the danger signs in pregnancy. And where we stopped, we looked at some of these danger signs, and the last point I was talking about was some signs that you might feel when you are having anemia, and as encouraging you to take the FeFo tablets, the iron tablets that we give you when you're pregnant. Other signs, it's true that you might get some kind of difficulty in breathing, but this difficulty in breathing might be much more than this. Sometimes my colleague had told you about pulmonary embolism, though we are not going to go into the deeper parts of this. What we have to know is that difficulty in breathing might be really a significant factor that you might need to look out for your healthcare provider. So here we begin with the early signs of labor. And once we talk about labor, this is the point that makes every mother anxious. This gives them a mixed feeling. What will be the outcome? Will I walk into the hospital and go back home with my baby? How is labor going to go? People fear the process of labor. Other mothers have declined labor and ask for elective cesarean sections because they fear the journey of labor. So when you're talking about labor, we are talking about that point when the contractions begin spontaneously, and these contractions have to help us go through the process of bringing out the baby and the other things that accompany the baby, like the membranes and the placenta, out through the birth canal. So during labor actually can start as earlier as 2 weeks. You can get signs that you're going to be in labor 2 weeks before if you are so keen to your body. And this labor, when you start this labor is in different phases or in different parts. Though we are not going to go to the details of the first stage of labor is from the time you start your labor up to the time we tell you that you're fully dilated, meaning the baby is able to get out. Then we go to the second stage of labor where you have to push out the baby and the baby is out. Then the third stage of labor is when we have to deliver the things that accompany the baby, that's the membranes and the placenta. But at this time, we are going to look at the preceding signs to labor. How do I get to know, especially in these days, that I'm going to get into labor? So, especially to the first-time mothers, even to all the rest of the mothers, pregnancy and labor is different. The way you experience the previous labor and the previous pregnancy, it might not be the same experience. Each experience is individualized, and it is so dynamic that we can predict exactly how you're going to go through it. So, especially to the first-time mothers, there is something we call lightening. Lightening is when your abdomen drops or sinks down a little bit, and this usually happens 2 weeks before. This usually happens in the first-time mothers. But in the mothers who have given birth before, we call them multigravida, those mothers may not have their abdomen sink until they are in labor. However, some can actually have lightening take place. This kind of sinking will help the mother breathe normally. Usually, we had talked about when you are pregnant, the abdomen is completely within the rib cage, the diaphragm, so it's compromising your breathing. Mothers will be having kind of shallow breathing. So what happens when the abdomen sinks is that you get kind of relief. At that time you'll feel like, this is not how I've been breathing. Here I can breathe well, I can move well, I can do my things well, I can sleep without difficulties in breathing. So this is what happens when we say lightening. So what happens when you get into lightening, when your abdomen sinks, is that it's been a little bit up. Remember, yes, you had your increased urinary frequencies, but at this time it's going to increase because the head has descended into the true pelvis, the real part of the bones. So once the head or the part that is going to be presenting descends in there, you are going to have more of the urinating. So you find all the time you go to urinate, the urine is small, and then you cannot contain it, and then you can't wait. So that can also tell you that these things that are happening to me, I think the head has really come a little bit down, and the way my abdomen has sink, so it is kind of a sign that can let you know that usually I'm towards labor, and this happens usually 2 weeks prior to labor. So still, that when that happens, you might continue to complain of the low back pain. You feel like there is this kind of dull pain that is within your back and you cannot really understand. So this usually happens because the bones have to relax. There are some hormones that work on your bones to relax. I know you use a lot of things that are quite herbal, though we don't encourage them, that like okumenya and other things. We hear about those words. So those herbals, they might do worse more. Why? Because already the body has taken care of that. You have the hormone that has relaxed all your bones and the ligaments, that it is able to expand when the baby is passing there. So this mother is going to get such kind of pain within the back. Then also the mother might feel like the cramp, the contraction. This contraction might be there. Yes, it is strong, but it is very irregular. It comes today, it comes after how many hours, but it is not there regularly. So we call those Braxton-Hicks contractions. So people usually come to the hospital when they are not in labor. Why? Because they have experienced this. This tells us that yes, labor is near, but at this point you're not yet in labor, and we would want you when you're actually in labor. So with all that the abdomen had sunk, you're getting increased urinations, the back is kind of paining because of the relaxing hormone and other things. So you'll find that you might also experience what we call a blood show. So a blood show, you will find that your mucus, the vaginal mucus, is fluid is going to become more mucoid, and it will actually increase. You will realize that it has so much increased, but this time it is mucoid, and to the worst it might have some kind of blood stains. This comes as a result of congestion that is happening within your pelvic area. So this is a normal sign, and it tells you that actually labor is starting. This is one of the signs that will tell you that I am getting in labor or I am in labor. And once you see this, it's important that you run to the hospital to be assessed for further details to see exactly if the labor is starting. But once we have reached at this point, it's more likely that we are not going back. We are not going back. Here you might need to stay in the hospital. The other sign that you're going to experience is the contractions. Now this is what everyone fears. The true contractions are going to come in. So the nature of these contractions is like this. They have to be regular and stronger. So each time they'll be stronger and stronger. What you experience now is going to be less stronger. What will come next will be much more stronger, and it has to last for longer period of time. So you'll find like when they started, it was lasting, maybe you are getting like 4 of the cramps in like 30 seconds or 20 seconds, but you can get like 1 in 30 seconds. Then you'll find they are increasing, they are becoming 2 in 35 seconds. You also realize that they are actually increasing in duration and in frequency. So, and once they start occurring that closer to each other, this means that you're actually in labor. So once you get the cramps or the contractions that are closer to each other, that are increasing in duration and are increasing in frequency, it is important that you run to your midwife or to the nearest health facility or to the place where you have planned to give birth from. Then, like we have said, many women, when they don't understand labor, they experience this kind of back pain that is radiating to the abdomen. That's the true contraction. She will want to find relief or measures. Some will move around, but you will find that with true labor, the more you move around, the more you try to find relief, it's the more they are going to increase. So if you try to find relief and you turn and you're relieved, just know you're not in labor. Wait, you have to turn and you get a relief. The position that was giving you relief now, it's no longer giving you relief. If you are walking and you feel like you're relieved, this time you will walk, and believe me, you will not get any relief. And that will mean that you're actually in true labor. So like I have said, this pain has to radiate from the back, coming to the low abdomen. If you find this pain is only stationed on the abdomen, please, that is maybe the Blackstone Hicks contractions that we are talking about. So those ones will not be true labor. This pain or contractions, they have to come from your back, and they are radiating to the low abdomen, and they cannot respond to any kind of relief measures. So when you go to the hospital, this is where they will tell you about your cervix, because I'm sure you will not tell about your cervix or the opening of the uterus from home. So for us, when we examine, we shall find it is soft. It has been a little bit, we call it infest, but it's called taken up. And so with the increased contractions, it's going to start to dilate. So once it does that, it means that you're actually in labor. So in addition, some mothers might have a spontaneous rupture of membranes, meaning that the water that has been protecting the baby is going to burst. Usually this can happen at either phase of the labor, but in case it happens, please do not stay home, because for us, we know if you have ruptured your membranes, how long do you have to do what? To bring the baby out. This might not be helped when you're home. So it's important that the moment you see the first sign, please run to the hospital. Do not wait for the late signs of labor that you might have your baby delivered on your way to the hospital. Then another thing is that during the preceding signs, the first ones, you might actually realize that you have lost some kind of weight. So though this weight is really minimal, it's true, like 0.5 to 1.5 kilograms. So what happens is that when labor is starting in, we had talked about some hormones that help us, maybe progesterone and estrogen. So these hormones kind of retain water. So at this time, they have to go away so that labor starts. So once they are going away, also water is going to be away from your tissues, and so the weight might also reduce to those kilograms. Still in that period of time, you might wake up and feel like you have so much energy like you have never had before. Like you feel you can wash all the utensils on the sink, you feel you can mop and clean your house. So once you feel this kind of surge of energy, you have also to be like exactly what is happening, because you've been always fatigued, you can't do this, you can't do that. But today you wake up, you clean your house, you clean the utensils, like you're able to do most of the things. So that means that you actually might be heading into labor. So less commonly, women might also experience some kind of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and other things. So in brief, we have looked at the normal physiology in pregnancy. We have seen what changes happen when you're pregnancy. We might not have exhausted so much, but I'm sure that with your midwife, with the obstetricians, and through the antenatal classes that you go through, you should be able to exhaust most of the signs that happen when you are pregnant. We have looked at the danger signs. Some of them, you remember them. I hope you remember them, especially having a very bad headache, having water come through your vagina, having blood come through your vagina, having your feet, your face swell. Kindly do not hesitate. For the danger sign, do not take any 1 minute. Do not postpone, because the more you postpone, the more the problem is exaggerated, and the more you cannot be helped. Usually women have died of the delays, like we had talked about it. Delay to make a decision. If you have a headache, you alone taking the decision to go to the hospital has had many women die, because they did not take the decision at the point they had to take the decision. Delay to decide on which facility. Actually, they don't even know where should I go. Should I go to Nakasero? Should I go to Kampala? Where? Should I go somewhere? Like, it's really hard. If you don't create a relationship with a midwife and with your obstetricians and draw a care plan, it's very hard for you that you might survive if you still have to think of where to go when you have a problem. And the last one is like delay to receive care. We have, I know the government of Uganda have put lots of things in emphasis. However, delay in receiving care could be still a reality. So please, the more you don't delay at home, the more you don't delay on the way, even if there was a small delay at the hospital, you could be saved. But let us not the health workers delay, and you also delay, and you find we cannot help you. And lastly, we looked at the early signs of labor, and kindly, you can still tell in 2 weeks that you're getting into labor. And that is specifically for the mothers who are giving birth for that first time. Mothers who are giving birth on the preceding times, it might not be the same case. So, actions, what do we do in case all that happen? All we can tell you is contact your midwife or obstetrician without any delay. If you don't contact them, that's where you are going to get a problem. There is no any measure that we are going to tell you, do this, and do this at home. It's not there. The only best way is to run to the health facility where you can easily be helped. Please run to the nearest health facility. And we have seen that some of the measures that they have put in place is that even in my deepest villages, there are health center tools. Each health center too has a midwife. And these midwives are actually competent. We agree that whoever they have deposited into the health center too has the capacity to make a decision for you on where to go and exactly analyze the situation. So run to your health center too, and be referred to where you are supposed to be. Do your antenatals 8 times, like World Health Organization indicates. And other things is that keep in touch, keep your appointments until you're able to give birth and give birth well. So these are some of your questions to reflect about, and they are the exact things that we have looked at. The normal features in pregnancy, that's the normal physiology, the causes of danger signs, and the actions that you can do, and also the common signs of what? Of early labor. So this is all for today's class or lecture. Thank you, viewers, for staying with us. And in case you want any more of the information, we got all this from these references. And when you go on to the Victoria website, you will find this video down. You can click to learn more about the danger signs in pregnancy and the early signs of labor. Thank you, Mr. Kariango, Frank, for making this presentation possible. And thank you, our viewers, for keeping in touch with us, and our mothers who are there, the pregnant women. We are really passionate to serve you, and we hope you're going to do all that we have talked about. And lastly, in case you have any question, or in case you have any concern or any comment, you can post them on our websites and other social media platforms of Victoria University. Thank you so much to NTV for giving us this opportunity.